Great. Thank you so much for having me today.
And you know what, Congressman? You're one of the 54 conservative Republicans who voted yesterday to shut down the continuing resolution in the House. How did you come to that decision?
Well, we passed H.R. 1, which cut $61 billion from discretionary spending, $100 billion against FY11 several weeks ago, and it's been stalled both in the Senate and certainly the President has not really moved on it in any way. And we did a 2-week CR several weeks ago to kind of get us to a point where they could at least have time to consider it, and I felt that was plenty adequate. But now we went another 3-week CR, and the money that we're cutting, we are cutting money in these tiny CRs, continuing resolutions, but we're really opening up little piggy banks and emptying out the change. We're not really cutting day-to-day spending, which is what we've got to get to very rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, how does that happen at this point? Do you see, are we looking at another continuing resolution in just the next couple of weeks?
Leadership won't commit that we won't have another one, but I really think, and talking to a lot of my colleagues who voted yes, that that's their last time. And so I think it would be very tough to pass another short-term continuing resolution that everybody's ready. If there's going to be a showdown, let's go ahead and get the showdown.
Now, it's interesting. You mentioned the leadership and some of the discussions that are going on. Is there a strain at this point between some of the more conservative members, such as yourself, and the leadership, or is it just politics? Is this the way it goes?
I think that leadership would like it that we were more unified. That obviously strengthens their hand. But on the other hand, we conservatives feel like that we were sent to Washington with a mandate that we should be listening to our constituents, not necessarily our leadership, and that our leadership, if it begins to drift a little to the left, that we've got to grab hold of them and pull them back to the right towards conservatism.
How much did the $105 billion in healthcare spending, how much did that play into your vote this week?
Well, quite a bit, because that was a bit of a surprise to us. It was sort of spring-loaded into Obamacare. If you may recall, that bill was dropped on us with very little information. We didn't have time to read it. Many of members, even on the Democratic side, had not read it. They had embedded that $105 billion in forward spending. The best way to explain that is those are post-dated checks, spending that was committed in prior years for future years. And so we see that as the most dangerous thing in that bill right now, and we feel like that if we're going to stop the implementation, we've got to stop that money that has already been appropriated.
In an ideal world, Congressman, what would you like to see cut? What would be the number, I guess, in your head? Is it the $61 billion or is it the $100 billion that was originally promised last summer? What do you think?
I think that it needs to be substantial. I think if you quibble between 60 and 100 billion, you're missing the whole message, because whatever it is, whether it's 60 or 100, we're only talking about 1/15 of the total annual deficit. So it's not going to matter in the bigger scheme of things. What matters is the trend downward, and that it's real cuts and real shrinkage of government. And again, we're going to have to get to entitlements if we're going to ever balance a budget. And so why deal with Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid when the largest and newest entitlement that was just passed, why not go after that one, and that's Obamacare first, which many think could cost as much as $1 trillion onto our national debt over the next 10 years.
On another topic, NPR, a vote potentially coming to the floor on Thursday to cut off funding for that agency, for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. What do you think about that?
Well, even a recent off-the-cuff interview with an executive of that organization said they don't need the funding. We have many media channels out there, including your own, that do just fine without government subsistence. So, and in the bigger scheme of things, I hear estimates of anywhere from 6 to 10% of their operating budget comes from federal government anyway. So I think it's high time that we pull the plug on that funding when we're got $14 to $15 trillion in debt. And for heaven's sakes, we're funding a very liberal-leaning organization that it doesn't even attempt to be neutral.
Sure. I want to go a little bit deeper here in terms of beyond the NPR funding and sort of to a larger issue that a lot of my listeners ask me about and that we talk about all the time, which is this idea of what is the role of government? I mean, where does government end for you? I mean, is it too expansive right now in your mind?
In my opinion, the federal government has two main responsibilities. One is to provide for a common defense and protect its citizens in the process, and that would even go down to consumer protection and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then secondly is to make sure that there's an even playing field for commerce, that we can all compete in the big football field, if you will, of business and commerce, so that we all have an equal opportunity to be successful, but not guaranteeing an outcome. Mm. I think anything we do going beyond that and to become intrusive, such as the regulations and EPA, what's going on now with that, and the shutting down of drilling offshore, constraining our petroleum flow and making gas prices go up, I think that's far beyond any mandate for federal government.
I've also got one more comment I want to read to you from our Facebook fan page. I told him I'd be interviewing you this morning, and John Demansky saying, ask the congressman, or Dr. Fleming, as he asked me to call you, if he thinks that him speaking to the Rotary Club of Mansfield, Louisiana, when he was campaigning, which he attended, springboarded you to victory. Do you believe that was part of it?
I think that was absolutely the one thing that got me across the finish line.
Thank you so much.